Hello, welcome to the Cobot Makerspace at the University of Nottingham. I'm Praminda Caleb-Solly. I'm Professor of Embodied Intelligence. I lead the Cyber-Physical Health and Assistive Robotics Technologies Research Group. We are an interdisciplinary team working to develop intelligent robots to support health and well-being.
I'm Dr. Emily Crow. I'm a research fellow in the School of Psychology with expertise in human sensory motor control and learning.
Hi, I'm Simon Carter-Green. I'm Technical Manager at the School of Computer Science, and I also work over here in the Cobot Makerspace. My role entails software engineering and supporting the robot-related research that we undertake here.
Hi, and I'm Dominic Price. I'm a research fellow in Horizon Digital Economy Research and the Trustworthy Autonomous Systems Hub, and I'm also the lab manager for the Cobot Makerspace.
So to start off with, we're going to take you on a little tour of our facilities. And first up is our living lab. This is a fully instrumented smart home, and it simulates a studio apartment. In here, we're able to test different types of robot platforms, bringing in end users and trying out different scenarios of use. This room has got a motion capture system. You can see here 8-camera Vicon system, which helps us to collect data regarding people's movements as they interact with the robots. And here's Jialin. She's our PhD student working on developing a digital twin model of a robot and a human working together. And you can see she's set up with reflective markers. We're collecting lots of data with people. We've also got other types of sensors in this place, which allow us to monitor how people are using different furniture, etc. And you can see there, Jialin pointing to a smart home sensor, which then provides data to an assistive robot that can prompt people with everyday activities. And next up is our hospital ward simulation area. And here you can see another one of our PhD students, Angela, who is working with an intelligent mobility assistive device, the Leo Walker. And we use this to be able to collect data about people's balance and gait. And this is really helpful in analyzing how people change over time. And here you can see data from the handlebars, where you can see if people's balance changes over time. And we use machine learning algorithms to be able to track long-term conditions. We also have privacy-preserving, cost-effective sensors, such as this thermal imaging camera system, which is being developed for fall detection. And falls take place at night. This technology is helping identify when people fall so that a carer can be alerted, or a smart agent within the home can support the person. Over to you, Emily.
So our goal here at the Cobot Makerspace is to design healthcare technologies that involve collaboration between humans and robots. And this means that the human will always remain central to the solution. And today we're going to give you one demonstration of this. Mobility deficits are a very common consequence following injury or stroke, and can have a really negative impact on patients' mental health and well-being, because it often results in feelings of a loss of independence and a loss of agency. So one solution to this problem is to use sensing technologies that can detect the intact movements of patients and translate that into movements of a collaborative robot. And what this robot can do is then move around the house and perform various things for the patient. And what this means is that they can still maintain some of their independence despite having lost some of their mobility. So I will now pass over to Simon, who will talk us through this technology.
Thank you, Emily. So for this demonstration, I'm going to talk us through how we can use a pressure sensing seat map in order to control a mobile robot. So the seat map that we're using is a Sensing Text seat map, and it has 256 pressure sensors embedded into the mat. Now, our algorithm takes the data from those pressure sensors and converts them into signals that the robot can use to actually navigate. Now, for this demonstration, we've actually got a maze built that we're going to navigate the robot around, and I'm going to basically give you a quick run through to show you how this works. So you can see on here now, I'm sat on the mat, and by shifting my weight around, I can control the robot. Now, on the screen, you should be able to see that there's a camera view from the robot, which shows you what the robot can actually see. So you can see as how we're navigating around the maze at the moment. And on the other side, you can see what we call a seat map, which is effectively a heat map generated from the data in the pressure sensing mat. Now, each of the sensors create a value of how much pressure is being put through them. And from these, we can build up a representation of where the distribution of weight is spread across the mat. Now, for our purposes, we convert that distribution into basically split it into quadrants and use the values of each quadrant to determine which way the robot should move. So we generate the kind of messages that the robot needs to understand the navigation.
So one thing that you might have noticed while Simon is driving is that the relationship between how Simon moves and how the robot moves changes depending on where that robot is within this maze. So when the robot's camera is facing away from Simon, like at the start of the maze, Simon and the robot essentially have the same viewpoint. And this means that Simon must shift his weight forwards to move the robot forwards, which is very intuitive and easy to do. In contrast, as you see now, whilst the robot comes around this corner, the robot's camera is actually facing towards Simon. So this means that Simon and the robot have different viewpoints. So now you'll see that Simon actually needs to move backwards to get that robot to the end of the maze and move the robot forwards. Now, this is harder and less intuitive, and so something that we're studying in terms of trying to design optimal control systems that are intuitive for the user.
Brilliant. So as you can see, I managed to successfully navigate that, except for just clipping one block at the end. However, what we'd like to now to do is bring somebody in who's never driven the robot using this control mechanism before. Would you like to come and take a seat? Just take a seat on here. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Gift. I'm a first-year PhD student here at the University of Nottingham.
Okay, and just to confirm, you've never used this control system to drive the robot?
Never, I haven't.
Brilliant. So what we'd like you to do is pretty much like I've just done. If you could just take a step in front of the seat map, sit down, and then obviously shift your weight around on the map to try and control the robot to see how far through the maze you can get.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, you can see right at the beginning, it's quite difficult initially to set off. And Gift is having to try and shift his weight now to try and avoid knocking any of our amazing ducks off of their stand. And we've got another minor clue. That's great. This is exactly what we like to demonstrate. So keep going. And a couple of the ducks have been just knocked there. And we're just trying to get around Ducky Corner, past the robot scrapyard.
Oops.
Brilliant. Okay, if you that's it, just lean back, that's the one. So you can see he's really actually having to put quite a bit of thought and effort into moving the weight distribution in order to navigate around the maze. And we're a little bit stuck on this duck corner. That's fine. So if you just give it a really good lean back, you should be able to get your...
I'm out of the maze.
Okay, if you stand up, it helps you just reset yourself. That's it. And then you can try sitting down and reverse up. Would you like me to pop you back inside?
Yes, please.
Yeah, no problems. Okay, and this is a really good example of how difficult it can be when you've never used it before.
Can I use my hand to essentially
if you wish
pause?
to.
All right.
So what Gift's asking now is basically whether he can stabilize himself through the use of his hands. But yeah, go for it. Please feel free to do whatever you need to do to navigate around.
Oops.
Looks like you were going to take a shortcut there. Brilliant. Okay, so now we've got past this main bit, heading past Bingo, who's hanging out on the side there. We're going to just go past the Mindstorm, and we're coming to the cat roundabout, where hopefully we can get round the roundabout without clipping the cat. Lovely turn there. Spoke too soon. Oh, nice. Excellent. Okay, so yeah, brilliant. That's a really nice turn, and now Gift's controlling the robot with a bit more ease now, so it feels like he's starting to get the hang of the control system. Okay, and our time is up. Thank you. The gong has rung. So if you'd just like to take a seat back on there for me. That'd be brilliant. So how did you find that?
At first, it felt like I didn't have particular control of the front and back movement. So while I was trying to navigate around, I noticed it kept moving forward, and then trying to stabilize my weight around was quite challenging because, I thought I was stabilizing my weight enough, maybe through the back, for instance, to perhaps decelerate. But it seemed maybe I needed to make maybe more motions or make it a little more obvious or so. So like making deliberate moves. But other than that, when I started using my hand, I felt I was able to maybe use strategic points behind behind my lap or my back, essentially, to navigate better. Hence, the less destruction there compared to here.
Excellent. That's a really good answer. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for participating in this and giving us a fantastic demonstration. Praminda.
Yes, so what you saw there was really interesting because you saw Gift who improved at the end, but when he was starting off, it wasn't very easy for him and he was going around knocking a few things here and there. And that just goes to show you, because the system has been calibrated and developed for Simon, so Simon's weight, Simon's anatomy, and his patterns of movement and balance. And so we're looking to develop artificial neural network systems which are able to take that data, the sensor mapping data, and be able to generate better models that are individualized, personalized for particular people, for individuals. And so then we get this better mapping between the person who is using the control system, more intuitive, with controlling the robot. And extending that even further, the robot that you saw, the Locobot, has got a LiDAR sensor and it's got a RGBD camera, which means that it can also do local obstacle avoidance and navigation. And this is particularly useful for somebody who might start off with being able to indicate to the system which direction they want to go in, and then the robot taking over and doing some of the lower level control of avoiding obstacles. And this shared control, a shared autonomy model is really interesting to develop further, particularly in the research that we're doing here, which is developing assistive robots to support people with a range of different sensory, cognitive, and mobility impairments. Emily.
So with that, we would like to thank you for coming to look at our demo today. We hope that we've shown you the promise in the possibility of using this pressure sensing technology to guide a collaborative robot, and really think this could be used both inside and outside the home in its applications. Of course, we recognize that we are trying to develop a new control system, so there are still difficult things that we need to overcome. For example, how to make the mapping between the user's movements and the robot's movement intuitive, and also developing these personalized approaches to the calibration routines so that it's suited for each independent user.
Okay, so with that, we would love for you to ask us questions about our research and what you've seen here today.
Okay, so we've had a question come in from Daniel Watson, and I think probably Simon's going to be best placed to answer this. He asks, what kill switch mechanisms have been put in place for the robot in case the operator needs to shift weight for comfort instead of control?
Okay, now that really excellent question, and thank you for asking that. So at the moment, the main kill switch that we have is that the operator stands up, and what that does, it basically removes all of the signals from the pressure mat, so that the robot then basically gets a null signal and stops moving. But in terms of its how the operator can adjust themselves from a comfort perspective, it's a really good question, and we don't actually have anything built for that at that moment. We do have the ability to kill the script that runs in the background, which gives us an element of safety. But bearing in mind, this is a fairly low risk research grade kind of robot, and we're using it in a very controlled space. The safety aspects of that have been reduced and within a recommended kind of safe guideline. But it's something that actually I think we will probably take offline and actually have a look at about the shifting of comfort, and where we saw Gift actually using his hands to stabilize him. I suspect there was an element of improving his comfort whilst trying to control there. So yeah, really good question, and some opportunities I think off the back of that.
Yeah, definitely. Is there another question?
No, that's all
That's
questions.
the other one. Yeah, I just like to follow up this whole idea of sharing control between the system and the person is a really interesting research area. And as we start to use more physiological and implicit methods of controlling these systems, it becomes more and more important to conduct research in how to develop those control systems. So, Emily, I think your research relates to this.
Yeah, so my research is really kind of focused on trying to make these new and novel control systems intuitive so that users can have a quick learning curve and be able to use them effectively quite quickly. So one area that I'm really interested in is the delays that are introduced by using robots. So if you imagine, as soon as you introduce a technology, I will move, but then there will be some delay until I see my movement shown in the robot, for example. So I'm particularly interested in how the delays that are introduced there and either lengthening them or shortening them has a direct influence on people's feelings of agency and whether they're really in control of this collaborative robot, because that's really important in terms of getting people to feel like these are a good things to buy into and they are helpful things for us to use and engage with.
Yeah. And we've actually been running some studies with robots to support dressing in my previous role in another project, iDress. And what was really interesting is we wanted to see whether we can model these unintended movements. So somebody sneezes or somebody gets distracted. How is that robot going to know that that person is distracted and it needs to stop? So again, an interesting open area of research for us to be working on.
Yeah, I think that's true. And in terms of being able to filter out the noise in the movement and detecting kind of the real intention of the user and what they want that robot to do and help them with. And I guess this kind of comes on to using various models and neural networks to train these models. And I think that comes on to Simon quite nicely and what excites you most about this line of research.
Yeah, thank you for I mean, I think for me, it's at the moment we're using it on a fairly standard differential drive mobile base, but I like the thought that we can actually basically apply the same control mechanism and use it on things like quadrupeds and omnidirectional mobile bases, which theoretically the algorithms just need to be converted so that the signals being sent from the mat, the pressure sensor, can just basically have a slight remapping and could work for so many different types of devices. And I think that really excites me, that this could be a control system that could be used across a wide range of robotics.
Okay. And yes, there's some other comment there, which we can see from Daniel. Okay. I think one of the things that we're interested in extending our research, I think building on from what you said, Simon, is how much the embodiment and the mechatronics will have an impact on the control systems that we develop and the mechanisms for supporting that, particularly when we start to look into working in more challenging environments of these systems, with these systems. So outdoors, people are using shared autonomy and teleoperation in situations for search and rescue, for example. So a teleoperator or a firefighter can be there controlling a system like this. So it's a really interesting way to bring in people from other disciplines to work with us to understand that relationship between how people learn and how they're able to then control the system.
Yeah, we've actually had another question from Russell Buchanan. Have you thought of other ways this could be used by humans, for example, while standing up or lying down?
Yes, indeed. There are lots of opportunities to be able to use that pressure seat mat as a control. And then we're also looking to see whether this can be used over a period of time to be able to look at people's changes. So if somebody was undergoing rehabilitation, they might be able to have better control. And then you could modify that system based on how well they were balancing. So yes.
Yeah, I think the standing up is a really nice example there, where you can use this pressure sensor, which gives this real-time feedback. So you can kind of train posture and any issues someone might be experiencing with that. So you can get this real-time feedback of, oh, you're not balanced and you're putting more weight on your right leg, for example. So it certainly has promise in a rehabilitation setting as well.
Yeah, we've got one more question from Claire Asher. And I think this is kind of addressed to all of us, but what inspired us to get into this field of robotics? And I'll say that it was an accident. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, but something I'd never look back at.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was, I've always loved to tinker with things. And if you can tinker with things, have fun, and be able to develop technology that's going to make a big impact in people's lives, then it's what helps me jump out of bed in the morning and come to work.
Yeah. For me, it's been a very recent interest because I'm new to the University of Nottingham and came to an event here at the Cobot Makerspace, which is when I met all these people and got involved. So it's been a very new thing, but a very exciting space to work in, which is really related and more applied than my previous research in sensory motor control.
And for me, my previous career was in software development, but being able to actually do something that's so physical and actually be able to write code that makes robots do things and do things that are really worthwhile is what really inspires me. And also just that there's so many different types of robots out there. It's not just the case of you're building one robot that does one thing. It's just a great big field that's just so amazing to be involved in.
Excellent. And so, yep.
Okay.
And so I hope you will visit our website, the Chart Research Group website, the Cobot Maker website. We've got lots of opportunities for you to participate in events that we organize. We've also got a network, a Health Technologies Robotics Network. And if you look on our website, it's called Emergence. You can join up and stay involved with future events that we will be running here and organizing. Thank you. Thank you for all your questions. Hello, welcome to the Cobot Makerspace at the University of Nottingham. I'm Praminda Caleb Solly. I'm Professor of Embodied Intelligence. I lead the Cyber-Physical Health and Assistive Technologies Research Group. We are an interdisciplinary team working to develop intelligent systems and robotics technologies to support health and well-being.
I'm Dr. Emily Crow. I'm a research fellow in the School of Psychology with expertise in human sensory motor control and learning.
Hi, I'm Simon Castle-Green. I'm a technical manager here in the School of Computer Science and in the Cobot Makerspace. In my role, I support the robot-related research that's ongoing.
Hi, and I'm Dominic Price. I'm a research fellow in Horizon Digital Economy Research Hub and the Trustworthy Autonomous Systems Hub, and I'm also the lab manager for the Cobot Makerspace.
And we're going to start by taking you on a quick tour of our facilities. So in addition to our main Cobot Maker Lab, we've also got a fully instrumented living lab space where we can run studies which simulate real-world contexts. This space has got a full motion capture system, and this enables us to conduct studies where we are measuring how people are interacting with robots in more realistic conditions. You will see in a second Jialin, who is our PhD student, running a study which is developing biomechanical models as part of a digital twin project. We want to be able to model long-term changes in conditions and how people's interaction with the technology that we're developing will change, and how the robots themselves will need to adjust. This space has got other wireless smart home sensors, which allows us to tag and monitor how people are using cupboards, opening fridges, etc. And that information can be given to a robot such as Robin there, you saw briefly next to us here as well, to provide prompts for everyday living tasks. We've also got another space, which is a simulated hospital ward room. And here you can see another one of our PhD students, Angela, who's working with the Leo Walker. This is a robotic smart walker with lots of different sensors. What this helps us to do is to be able to, again, collect data and monitor how people change with their conditions over time, and then how the robot has to be adjusted. Here you can see some data from the handlebars, which will help pick up changes in balance as people's frailty levels change. We're also using a range of cost-effective and privacy-preserving sensors, such as thermal imaging systems, and we're developing a system for fall detection. People tend to get out of bed and fall at night, and so this technology is really useful to be able to develop a system whereby information can be sent to a carer, or we can integrate another smart home assistant within the context of the person's environment to provide support for them.
So our goal here at the Cobot Makerspace is to design healthcare technologies which involve collaboration between a human and a robot. And what this means is that the human will always remain central to the solution. And today we're going to go through one example of this and give you a demonstration. So mobility deficits are a very common consequence of injury or arthritis or stroke, and are very difficult to deal with because it often leads to this very sudden loss of independence and agency. So one solution to this problem is to design and use sensing technologies that can detect the intact movements of a patient and translate this into the movements of a collaborative robot. And this robot can then go around the house and perform tasks for the patient, such that they still have a sense of independence and agency, despite not necessarily being as mobile as they may have been prior to their injury. Today, we're going to use a pressure sensing technology, and I'm going to hand over to Simon, who's going to talk about that in a bit more detail.
Thank you. So I'll take us through the demonstration that we're going to give you now, which is basically that we can control a mobile robot through the use of a pressure sensing seat map. Now, the seat map we're using is a sensing text, and it has 256 pressure sensors embedded into the mat, which record the user's movements, and we convert those into signals that the robot can understand. Now, the robot we're using is an Interbotics Locobot, which is a research-grade mobile robot. We use it here for a number of small research projects, and also our local robotics team use it for competitions. What we're going to do is actually just drive this using the seat map around the maze, and I will give you an example now of how this can be done. So as you can see, I'm just sat down, and by shifting my weight on the seat map, I can alter the commands that are being sent to the robot. Now, in the view that you'll be able to see on your screen, you should see the camera from the robot, so the first-person perspective of what the robot's actually seeing. And on the right-hand side of that, you should actually see a seat map, as we call it, which is a heat map of the values that are being sent from the various pressure sensors on the seat pressure mat. So you can see that as I'm shifting my weight from left to right and back to front, the robot is basically responding to those changes. Now, the way that this is done at the moment, it's fairly rudimentary, but we are splitting the sensor array into quadrants, and depending on where the majority of the weight is being positioned, we convert that into something called twist messages, which is what the robot uses for its movements. So every time we shift it over, a new twist message is sent with a new direction.
So one thing that you might have noticed while Simon is driving is that the relationship between how Simon moves and how the robot moves changes depending upon where the robot is within this maze. So at the start of the maze, when the robot's camera was facing away from Simon, Simon and the robot essentially had the same viewpoint. So this means that Simon shifts his weight forwards, and this moves the robot forwards. And this is a very intuitive control system. What you will see now as this robot is coming back around the corner and comes back down the home stretch is that the robot's camera is now facing towards Simon, while Simon is still looking forward towards this robot. So this means that the viewpoints are different. So here, Simon is now having to move backwards to get that robot home. Now, this isn't as intuitive, and thus highlights an important question for us, which is how to develop mappings that intuitively link the movements of a user to the movements of the robot.
Thank you. So as you see, I've managed to navigate quite successfully, didn't manage to clip any of the maze or any of the objects. But what we'd like to do now is invite a naive driver, someone who hasn't never used this technology before, and they're going to come over and give us, or to have an attempt at driving around the maze. Hi. You'd like
Hello.
to just take a seat.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Alex. I'm a research fellow in the lab, and I'm very excited to try this technology.
Excellent, brilliant. Well, what I'd like you to do, I mean, you've just watched me do it now, so if you could just stand in front of the mat, and when you're ready, just take a seat, and as mentioned, just shift your weight around to help control the robot.
Whoa! Oh, whoa!
That's fine. If you just lean back, you might need to.
This is very tricky.
If you need to stand up and just reposition yourself, try and sit right in the middle of that square.
Okay. Yeah. How do I do it?
And just try different shifting of your weight to slowly control the robot.
Oh wow!
So a little bit of the maze taken out, but that's all good. It's all fine. It's all expected.
I'm doing my best.
Alex has never used this control system before, so it does take a little while to get used to it. And also, it's being developed pretty much for me to drive it. We're going through the robot scrapyard at the moment. We might have broken out of the maze and taken a bit of a shortcut to the roundabout. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, so on the outside of the maze, we might be able to break back in, possibly coming. Yes, that's a good way. Reversing in through the wall. Brilliant work. Now we've made it to the cat roundabout in a non-conventional manner, but if you'd like to go around, watching the cat if possible. Excellent. Okay. And this really
definitely there is a learning curve.
There is definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, but
really
it's quite. Yeah, it is intuitive.
Okay.
No.
And the Mindstorm has now been taken out. This is brilliant. So watch out for bingos we go past. Excellent. Okay. On the home straight. Well, with a few corners to go.
Yeah.
And I thought the ducks were going to be safe, but I think we might lose a few here.
No.
It does take quite a bit of control to just give those quite precise signals through to the robot. Because these are some of the challenges that we face in improving this technology. Okay, and our time is up, but thank you very much for giving it a go. And a final duck in the process. If you'd just like to stand up for us, that will stop the robot from moving. Brilliant. Would you like to take a seat just here for me? Possible? Thank you. So the big question, Alex, is how did you find that?
It was definitely interesting experience, and the controls are intuitive. I can see definitely application of that technology. So yeah, very exciting.
Okay, thank you very much. Praminda.
So thank you, Alex, the master driver, and Simon, the master driver, and Alex. And what you saw there is a really good example of the need to personalize this technology. So the system has been calibrated using Simon's weight and his anatomy and his patterns of movement. And we were looking at how we can use artificial neural networks and other types of machine learning algorithms to be able to learn different people's way of moving and their patterns and how they can then control the system. What's really important here is to understand that it is an element, like you said, of learning, but quite a lot about the system being able to recognize and understand your personal anatomy and being able to match that to the movement of the robots. What we're also interested in is shared control or shared autonomy. So the Locobot there has got sensors on board. It's got a LiDAR, it's got a RGBD camera, and can do local navigation and obstacle avoidance. So what we're really interested in is being the Cobot Makerspace collaborative robots is to be able to work with the person using AI techniques to be able to decipher intent through the pressure map that's been trained using their movement patterns, and then integrate that with the robot, providing low-level control of being able to control the robot and not create such mayhem. And this is exciting because we can use these kind of technologies, as Emily mentioned earlier, to help people with maintaining their independence in the home. And we've got lots of different ideas on how this technology can be used. And Emily, you're using this in your own research as well. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so my research is particularly interested in this idea of generating intuitive control systems. So what I mean by that is looking into what mappings are easy to learn. And by a mapping, I mean the relationship between how a user moves and also how the robot moves, but also temporal components of that. So when the user moves and when the robot moves. So as soon as you introduce a technology into any control loop, you're going to get inherent delays. So it isn't as when I move my own body and that limb moves very quickly. There will be some delay in this control loop. And I'm interested in what happens when that delay gets too long and what are the implications of that for the user's sense of agency or sense that they really do have control over this collaborative robot. Because an interesting thing for me and a very important thing for me is that if people are going to buy into this kind of technology, then they need to feel in control and really need to feel the benefits and that it is adding and increasing their independence and their agency.
Yeah. And we had a really interesting question in our last session, which was about what if the person is just shifting around for comfort? How is that distinguished from intentional movement? And we've got some ideas on how we can deal with that, but that's really one of the challenges of using implicit data to be able to do control. And Simon, how is the system set up at the moment, and what are the ideas for future developments?
Okay, so at the moment, as I say, the algorithms are fairly rudimentary and based on me, and that's a case that we are splitting the distribution of weight across the mat and using that to decipher the intent of the person. There's a number of challenges there, and the different people, as you've identified, will have different thresholds for that split. So really, I think the exciting thing is the potential of using artificial neural networks to train across a wider representation of people so that we can actually build a generalized system that doesn't require any calibration and that will just work for everyone.
Okay.
And we've got another question that's come in. They're asking, do you think that the smart seat sensor will eventually be implemented at somebody's home or rehabilitation practices? If so, when do you think this will happen?
So this technology is already being used in physiological monitoring. So in terms of understanding biomechanics of people and being able to do assessments of people. The way we're using it is quite innovative and unique. And as you can see, it requires various levels of development in terms of making sure that the mapping is actually intuitive for the person to control the system, that unintended, non-intentional movements can be represented as such, and also to be able to develop the AI and machine learning algorithms where there is this shared collaborative approach between the person and the robot. And so we still have got quite a few years of research to go, but we see this as a very promising way forward for people, as Emily mentioned earlier, who have lost mobility to move. Any other comments on that, Emily?
I think we have another question that's just come in that we should maybe try and
Yeah, we have a question from Mega. They ask, what was the biggest challenge in developing this robot?
Okay, I mean, from my perspective, it's really been about trying to build a set of algorithms that will support a lot of different people. So as we've mentioned a number of times, this works really well for me and I'm able to control the robot very well. But other people need to come and sit down and try the mat. There's quite a big learning curve. And I think we can overcome that so it's even more intuitive and people can just sit down and drive it with a lot more control. And it's all about trying to improve the algorithms, whether that's using artificial neural networks or that we just come up with better calibration routines that are quicker for new people to run through. They are the big challenges, and that's what's going to make it universal and more widely adopted as a system for controlling robots.
Okay, so we're really excited about these technologies. If you would like to find out more about our research, please visit our website. You can see that at the bottom of your screens. The Cyber-Physical Health and Assistive Robotics Research Group have got a website. We are also running EPS-RC Health Technologies network called Emergence, and we are providing an opportunity to join research into this area and providing support through small funding grants. So have a look at what we've got available, and we look forward to you visiting us in person. And thanks to the team for setting this up and everybody else. Would the team like to come up and say hello to everybody? Do you want to come? No. Okay. Have we got? I wasn't on this screen.
No.
Okay, no more questions. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome to the Cobot Makerspace at the University of Nottingham. I'm Praminda Caleb Solly, Professor of Embodied Intelligence. I lead the Cyber-Physical Health and Assistive Technologies Research Group. We're an interdisciplinary team working on developing intelligent sensing systems and robotics to be able to help people with health and well-being.
I'm Dr. Emily Crow. I'm a research fellow in the School of Psychology with expertise in human sensory motor learning and control.
Hi, I'm Simon Castle-Green. I'm a technical manager here in the School of Computer Science and the Cobot Makerspace. And in my role, I support the various robotic research that's ongoing.
And I'm Dominic Price. I'm a research fellow at the Horizon Digital Economy Research Hub and the Trustworthy Autonomous Systems Hub. And I'm also the lab manager for the Cobot Makerspace.
So we're going to start by taking you on a quick tour of our facilities. So in addition to our Cobot Makerspace, we've got a living lab, which is a fully instrumented smart home, which is simulating a studio apartment. This space enables us to conduct research studies with our own researchers, our robots, and inviting participants into the space. We've got a motion tracking system. We're interested in how people move around robots and how they interact with robots. So here, Jerlin is got a whole lot of reflective markers. We're using that data to be able to model biomechanics of how people use different assistive technologies and build digital twins, which help us to design and simulate different adaptations that will need to occur as people's conditions change. We've got other smart home sensors, wireless smart home sensors and doors and cupboards, so we can monitor how people are using things around the home. And the robots get this information as well. Robin there and Robin here next to us can provide prompts for different tasks as people go about their everyday activities. We also have a hospital wardroom, and this is set up to simulate, as you can see, a space where we can conduct trials with assistive technologies such as this Leo walker, robotic smart assistant walker, and Angela here is using it to be able to monitor changes in people's long-term conditions over the time. The sensors from the handlebars here can be used to pick out when people are fatigued or their balance is changing, and we use AI and machine learning techniques to be able to map those changes into adapting the robot. We also have cost-effective and privacy-preserving sensors, such as thermal imaging cameras, which we're using to develop fall detection systems. People fall in their homes at night, and we want to be able to have technology that can send messages and alert carers or be able to support people themselves in their own home. Emily.
So our goal here at the Cobot Makerspace is to design healthcare technologies which involve collaboration between humans and robots. And the reason for doing this is that it means that the human will always remain central and integral to the solution. So mobility deficits are a common consequence of injury or stroke or aging. When someone experiences a deficit in their mobility, this can have detrimental impacts on their mental health and well-being because they have this sudden loss of agency and independence. So one solution to this problem is to use sensing technologies. And what these technologies can do is detect the intact movements of a patient and translate that into the movements of a collaborative robot. And then this robot can do various activities for the patient, both in and around the house. And this ultimately means that the patient can maintain a sense of independence and agency despite not necessarily having mobility. Today, we're going to give one demonstration of this, which is using pressure sensing technology to guide a robot in space. And I'm going to hand over to Simon, who's going to give some details on the technology.
Thank you. So I will talk us through our demonstration, which is how we can control a mobile robot through the use of a pressure sensing seat map. Now, we're using a sensing seat map, which has 256 pressure sensors embedded into it, which allows us to record the user's movements and translate them into instructions to send through to the robot so that the robot can move. For this particular demonstration, we are using an Interbotics Locobot, which is a research-grade mobile robot. Now, we use this for various research projects in the lab, and our robotics team use it for some of the competition entries as well. So what we have here is a maze we've built in order to give you a demonstration of how it can be controlled to drive around. So what I'll do is I will just take you through a run through. So first thing you can see is that I'm sat on the mat and I'm shifting my weight, which is in turn being translated into commands to be sent through to the robot. Now on the screen, you can see that there's a camera view on the left-hand side, and that's the view that the robot basically sees from its Intel RealSense camera that's positioned on the robot. And on the right-hand side, you can see that there's a heat map, or seat map we call it, which is a heat map of the various pressure sensor within the mat. And what's happening is all of the values that are being received from that pressure sensor are basically registered and sent through into a larger value. We split those values into quadrants and we use them to then determine which way the robot should be traveling in.
Yeah, so one thing that you might have noticed while Simon is driving through this maze is that the relationship between how Simon moves and how this robot is moving depends upon where that robot is within the maze. Now, if you think back to the start of the maze, when the robot's camera was facing away from Simon, Simon and the robot essentially have the same viewpoint. So this means that Simon must shift his weight forwards to move the robots forwards. And this is a very intuitive relationship between Simon's movements and the movements of the robot. Now, in contrast, as you'll see when the robot comes around this final corner, its camera will be facing towards Simon. And this means that Simon and the robot will have different viewpoints. So here, Simon must shift his weight backwards to make the robot move forwards towards him. And this can be rather counterintuitive and requires Simon to update the mapping that links his movements and the robot's movements, depending upon where it is in space. So this is one thing that I'm particularly focusing on, is trying to develop mappings between user and robot movements that make control systems like this easy and intuitive to use.
Thank you. So as you can see, I managed to make it through the maze without clipping any of the walls or the objects, which was a little bit hairy in some places, but I've managed to get through. What we'd like to do now is actually demonstrate how this is used by someone who's never actually driven the robot using this control mechanism before. So if we have a kind volunteer who's just going to come over and basically have a go at it for us. So if you can just take a seat on this blue bit for a second. Would you be able to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Koo. I'm a teaching associate in the School of Psychology in the University of Nottingham. I'm completely naive to this robot thing. No expertise in it, but I was quite curious when I was asked by Emily to come have a look and have a play around this device.
Excellent. Well, brilliant. What I'd like you to do then, if possible, is stand in front of the seat map, and when you're ready, just to sit down, try and sit in the center of those 4 white squares. And then that's it, just basically adjust your weight as you need to drive around. Now we can already see that the initial, it's quite difficult when you first start off. You just need to shift your weight back a little bit. That's it. Just lean back there. There we go. And we've got a few ducks that have just been taken out, which is nice. And we might want to turn around and go back the other way. The maze is in this direction, Josh. Okay, I'll just reset that for you and pop that back at the start. Okay, so yeah, just really give it a good shift around and really move your weight around. You can see on the screen the heat map of where your weight is actually being distributed. That's it, ducks down. Alternatively, instead of going round, we can go straight through the wall. You go for it. Enjoy it. The ducks were aesthetic anyway. And okay, that's brilliant. Okay, watch out for Bingo. He doesn't like to be hit too much. Okay, and we're really going off piste here. And unfortunately, the robot is now a runaway. You get a brilliant view. Okay, if you want to stand up for a second, that would just stop the robot. Just wait there a second. I'll bring it back. So yeah, you've got a really good view of the lab from our robot. I'm going to place you back in near Bingo, and if we just want to have another go, see if we can get round to the roundabout and pop round, see if we can make it to navigate round the cat roundabout. That's it. Okay. You really do like this part of the lab. It might be that you just need to maybe sit further back a little bit. So that's it. Yeah. There you go, and you've got your reversing now, and really lean across to the right. That's it. That's beautiful. Okay, now if you go, that's it. Lean forward and see if we can get. Let's hunt down the cat here. Let's see if we can get to our friend Floppy by the Christmas tree. Okay, there's some really good destruction on this maze. I'm actually really liking this. This is a great example of just how difficult it is for somebody else to drive this system on their first attempt. Okay, and the gong's gone, so I'm afraid we're actually out of time. But Josh, I mean, thank you very much for giving this a go, and you're really, really keen on this. Okay, you just want to stand up when you're done. Right. Thank you very much. Could you just take a seat there for a second? So, the big question: how did you find that?
Well, it was really difficult. I guess instead of like navigating through the maze, I walked around the perimeter of the maze and hit about as many things as I can, I guess. It is a little bit disorienting at first go. So I guess I wasn't distributing my weight properly. It kept moving. I'm not sure if it was possible to hold still or hold, pause the thing. But yeah, I guess it comes with practice. I think towards the end, I could go in the general direction which I intended to. And I heard Emily mentioned about like when you reach that part of the maze when it becomes somewhat disorienting, like the perspective of the robot and my perspective is somewhat in the opposite. That became quite difficult. So I was intending to go forward, and then intuitively I would lean my weight forwards as you would normally do, but it made the robot go backwards. So yeah, that was.
Well, again, thank you so much for basically giving this a go for us. It's really interesting what you were saying about being able to stop it while you're still sat on there. And it is possible, but it's a very advanced feature that you've got to get that balance of distribution perfectly right to try and actually stop the robot from moving. And it's not something you would expect on the first attempt. But again, thank you very much. And over to Praminda.
Yes, and thank you for that, Josh. And what you noticed there was the difficulty in being able to understand the mapping. And one of the reasons for that is that the pressure sensor mapping to control the robot has been calibrated for Simon. So it's all about his anatomy, his weight, and the way he moves his body and the patterns of movement. And this is really good for us because we're experts in developing AI and machine learning techniques. And this data can be used to develop personalized and individualized mapping, which are able to take up individual differences and be able to use that to be able to offer more fine-grained control. And in addition to that, we are very interested in shared control, shared autonomy. So this robot itself has got a LiDAR, laser scanner, and a RGBD camera. So it can do local obstacle avoidance and navigation. So working collaboratively with the person, with the neural networks detecting intention, together with the robot then doing the final level control and navigation on the ground, means that we can build up quite a successful system of joint collaborative human-robot interaction.
Mm-hmm. So with that, we would like to thank you for coming to look at our demo today. We hope that we've shown you that there is promise in using pressure sensing technology to guide a collaborative robot, but we also want to highlight that this is still work in progress, and we have lots of projects looking at things like how to make the mapping between user movement and robot movement collaborative, and also optimizing the calibration so this is suited for a personalized approach to healthcare. And I think Dom's going to ask us some of your questions.
Yeah, we've had some questions come in via YouTube. So Claire asks, how long does it take a new person to get used to using the seat sensor for control?
So that's a really good question. And it really varies. And I think a lot of that comes down to how close the physicality and their movement are to myself, which is what the robot has been calibrated to, as Praminda was alluding to. So one of our really big challenges here is to reduce that gap, that learning curve gap. And through that, we're going to do that by collecting lots of training data from people that are, with ground truth of what the direction they're trying to send the robot in. And we can use that to train a much better system that will hopefully not need any calibration, but also be a lot more responsive for new users, so that learning curve can be reduced considerably. So that, yeah, that's some of our future research aims, and we're really excited to move forward with that stuff.
Thank you. Yep, we've got a second question from Kartikeya, who says, wow, this is amazing. This pressure feedback can be used to play video games, which is a great idea, I think. And he asks, what is the latency of this system? It looks almost real time. And do we plan to integrate any haptic feedback in the seat?
Okay, so there's three questions there. So firstly, in terms of the video games, we have actually done some initial work. We've actually connected it up to Pac-Man, which was quite an interesting experiment. It was very difficult to get Pac-Man to actually move up and down the corridors because the timing had to be so right, and with the weight shifts, it would prove to be quite difficult. We've also created a virtualized simulation version of a turtle bot, where he's able to go around and try and pick up objects in order to get a score. So that's something we're actually working on, and we're going to hopefully be using in a number of different experiments over the coming months. In terms of the haptic feedback, Praminda, have you got...
Yeah, the haptic feedback is really interesting because in terms of being able to provide the person with other types of information, so if they're going too near an object, to give them that pre-warning before they crash into the object could be really helpful. One of the things to remember is we don't want to create too much cognitive load on the person as well, because usually when somebody might be using such a system, it could be to help them with assistive tasks in the home. So it could be, go and fetch me that book from the table. And so we want to be able to make the system as effective and efficient as possible without making it too fatiguing from the person's perspective to having to focus a lot. And this is where I think your work, Emily, is going to be really interesting.
Yes, I think as you point out, there's lots of exciting and fancy things we could do with this, but at the end of the day, we really need to think about what is the question and who is the user for this technology. So haptic guidance might be a really helpful, or haptic feedback might be a really helpful in some situations. For example, if you were using this as a rehabilitation tool to try and get people to train in certain muscle groups, that might be a really effective form of feedback, because we know we can respond quickly to it. So there's lots of exciting things to explore. I think we just need to take that kind of specific approach depending on who the end user is and what the goal of this technology, what solution this technology provides.
Thank you. We've got another question as well from Jack, who asks, can you reconfigure the controller range? For example, if one person can't lean to the side due to illness, or one particular side, what's the smallest range that you could use?
That's a really good question. And yes, absolutely, we could do that. It feels like the kind of thing we'd probably have to create on a quite personalized, so it would be a bespoke set of thresholds for that particular user. And maybe in the future, the neural network approach may allow us better control for that. But again, we'd need quite a lot of training data to be able to really produce something that generalizes. So I think, yes, but yeah, it's a very custom algorithm at that particular point. But really good suggestion there.
So we're very pleased you were able to join us and look at some of our work on embodied AI. And so this is combining AI and machine learning techniques with robots to be able to develop systems which are powerful for people with a range of physical, sensory, and cognitive impairments. If you'd like to find out more, please visit our websites in the Cobot Makerspace or our chart research group. Thank you again for joining us, and hope you've enjoyed the demonstrations and experience. We've got another session that will be starting at 5:30. So if you only caught the end of this one, please join in the next one. And I'd like to say thank you to the team who are here, who've been helping us also behind the scenes, Shruti and Neha. Thank you a lot. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to the Cobot Makerspace at the University of Nottingham. I'm Praminda Caleb Solly. I'm Professor of Embodied Intelligence. I'm leading a research group, Cyberphysical Health and Assistive Robotics Technologies. We are an interdisciplinary team working on developing smart sensing technologies and assistive robots to support people with healthy living and well-being.
My name's Dr. Emily Crow. I am a research fellow in the School of Psychology with expertise in human sensory motor control and learning.
Hi, I'm Simon Castle-Green. I'm a technical manager in the School of Computer Science and here at the Cobot Makerspace. And I basically support all of the robotic-related research that's going on here.
And I'm Dominic Price. I'm a research fellow in Horizon Digital Economy Research Hub and the Trustworthy Autonomous Systems Hub. And I'm also the lab manager for the Cobot Makerspace.
And before we get started, we're going to take you on a tour of our facilities. So in addition to the Cobot Makerspace here, we've also got a fully instrumented living lab. As you can see, this has been set up as a studio apartment. It's got a living room area, kitchen area. It's fully instrumented with sensors, including a Vicon motion capture system. And this is where we conduct our evaluation studies, looking at human-robot interaction, movement in realistic settings. We are interested to be able to map and understand gait and patterns of behavior. And here is Jolin, who's one of our PhD students working on a digital twin project. You can see here she's got reflective markers, and we're collecting data to be able to see how people ambulate around furniture and in conditions where their mobility might be impaired. Building models and including data from other types of smart sensors, such as wireless contact sensors in cupboards and doors, etc. We were able to provide this information for an assistive robot like the one you saw, Robin, and the one next to us here, to be able to offer people support in real time with prompts and help with tasks of everyday living. And we've also got a second space, which is set up as a hospital ward. And here you can see another one of our PhD students, Angela, who is using the Leo walker, an intelligent robotics walker, which is instrumented again with lots of sensors. And here we're interested to see how people's frailty levels affects their gait and balance, and be able to use the data. So you can see some data from the handlebars to see when their condition is changing over time. We are also interested in using a whole range of other cost-effective and privacy-preserving technologies and sensors, such as these thermal imaging cameras, to be able to use them for fall detection. We have been working with clinicians who are very concerned about people getting up in the night and falling. And so we're looking to see how we can develop a robust system that will be able to capture that and provide an alert to a carer or relative, or use a robot within the person's own home to be able to help and support them. Emily.
Yeah, so our goal here at the Cobot Makerspace is to design healthcare technologies that involve collaboration between a human and a robot. And the reason for doing this is that it means the human will always remain central to the solution. And today we're going to give you one demonstration of that. So mobility deficits are a common consequence of injury or stroke, and can have really negative impact on patients' mental health and well-being, because this sudden loss of mobility really reduces the sense of agency or independence that a patient can have. So one solution to this problem is to use sensing technology, which can sense or detect the intact movements of a patient and directly translate that into the movements of a collaborative robot. And this collaborative robot can then move around the house and do things for this patient, such that they still maintain a good level of independence and agency and can go about tasks on their own. To date, we are going to go through using a pressure sensing technology to guide a robot. And I'm going to hand over to Simon, who will give you some more details on the technology.
Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do is talk you through our demonstration, which is using a pressure sensing seat map in order to control a mobile robot. Now, the seat map we're using is by Sensing Techs. and it has 256 pressure sensors embedded into it. And what we do is we use the values that are received through that mat in order to map out what the user's intentions are, and then convert that into instructions for the mobile robot so it knows which direction it needs to go in. Now, we've built a fun little maze here, which we can use as an example. So I'm going to basically just give you a demonstration now of driving the robot around the maze through using this seat map. Now, if you look on the screen, you should be able to see a camera view from the robot, which shows you what the robot is actually seeing as I drive around. So we're just going around some of the difficult corners. Okay, and on the right-hand side, we have a seat map, as we call it, which is actually a heat map of the pressure sensor values that are being received from the pressure sensing seat map. And that this allows us to basically see where the distribution of pressure is through the mat. From myself. What we actually do with that is we split these the distribution of weight up into quadrants, and depending on where the weight is most prominent, determines which way the robot will actually navigate in, and we send appropriate messages through to the robot so it knows where to go.
Yeah, so what you might have noticed while Simon is driving this robot through the maze is that the relationship between how Simon moves and how the robot moves changes dependent upon where that robot actually is within the maze. So at the start, the robot's camera was facing forwards and Simon was also facing forwards, so that these two, the robot and Simon, essentially have the same viewpoint. And ultimately, this means that Simon's movements directly map onto those of the robot. So he moves forward and that robot moved away from him. This is very intuitive. But as you see now, when this robot is coming around the corner, the robot has a different viewpoint to Simon because that camera is now facing towards him. So here, Simon is having to move backwards to get that robot to come closer. And this can be somewhat counterintuitive because there's not this direct mapping between how Simon moves and how the robot moves. And this is one area of research that we are pursuing, which is to try and make these control systems most intuitive for the user.
Cool, thank you. So as you can see, I managed to navigate successfully without taking out any of the walls or the objects. So what we'd actually like to do now is invite a guest over who's going to basically have a go at driving this through this control system themselves. If you'd like to come and take a seat. Now, just to be noted, Gisella's never actually used this system at all before. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Gisela. I am a postdoctoral researcher here at the University of Nottingham. And I basically investigate how people interact with computers and robots.
Okay. But as mentioned, she's never used this control system before, so it's going to be quite exciting to see how she gets on. So if you'd like to just stand in front of the mat, and when you're ready, try and sit as in the middle of the mat as you can,
okay,
and then navigate yourself around the maze. Okay. Good luck.
Oh.
Okay, so straight into ducky corner, literally, and that's it. If you just might need to sit back a little bit further if needed.
Okay.
Yeah. If you need to reverse up, that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so if you lean right back, that's it. And there's quite a bit of a learning curve initially with this system anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm knocking everything.
That's fine. That's
my
totally
test,
totally expected. I say you're a brand new user, you've never used it before. Nicely navigated around the ducks, maybe clipped a couple there. Spoke too soon. And reversed in to finish them off. Brilliant. Okay, now let's see if we can get around this corner to find Bingo, who's waiting over there for us. Or we could alternatively say hello to the Lego Mindstorm.
It's
Nice, that's really good control on that corner. Okay, so you're now coming up to the cat roundabout. You can go around it whichever way you prefer. Just try and avoid the cat if you can. And Minnie as well.
okay.
Slight knock on Minnie, but that's fine. We're good. Okay, so round the Christmas tree. Excellent, really nice turn on that corner. Okay, and then heading back. So brilliant.
Okay, I'm getting the hang of it now. Oh.
Okay.
No, I lost it.
if necessary, you can always leave the maze and find your own way home.
I'll just do
reversing. Now we've gone the advanced mode. Okay, brilliant. So you're heading back to Ducky Corner.
Oh. Gisela,
And-
is your mic on?
Heading back to the Ducky Corner, and
That I previously destroyed.
that's fine. Just keep coming.
I really want to go to that direction, but
Past the robot scrapyard. And brilliant.
I made it.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well done.
Oh,
You are the first of our demos to actually make it all
Oh,
the way
really?
back, and with minimal damage as well. So
perfect.
thank you very much for your for giving that go. If you'd like to take a seat. Do you
Okay.
have any? How did you find it?
I think it was so very, very sensitive. Like, even if I put some pressure on it, it will react to that. So I didn't understand at the beginning. So yeah, I had to just be very quick on the movement. I think it was super responsive. There was no delay or anything. So just pressing on it is just starting going directly. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, but I guess you need a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely a learning curve too. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming along and participating
Yeah,
and giving it a go for us. Really appreciate it. Praminda.
So thank you for that, Gisela. One of the things that we saw there and demonstrated was the fact that, Gisela, you struggled much more than Simon did. And that's because the mapping of the pressure sensors within the seat mat have been calibrated for Simon, for Simon's weight, for his anatomy, and the way he actually moves. And this is where our expertise in developing AI and machine learning algorithms such as artificial neural networks gets really exciting, because what we are aiming to do is to use the data from the pressure map to be able to develop models trained on people, on individual people, so that we are able to develop models that are personalized and individualized to them. And there was an interesting question in our previous session, which was about what if somebody can't move all the way to the left? And that would be really interesting for the model itself, because then the neural network can be trained on the range of movement and motion that that person has. And we're looking to take this technology even further with developing shared control or autonomy. One of the things we're interested in doing is using the sensors which are located on the robot itself. So the robot has got a LiDAR and an RGBD camera. It's been a long day. And these sensors can be used to program the robot to do local obstacle avoidance and navigation. And so together with using an artificial neural network to be able to pick up human intention and movement, together with the robot collaborating and sharing in that control, we are able to put together, we hope, very sophisticated systems to be able to offer people with a range of sensory or physical disabilities the opportunity to be able to control devices such as the Locobot and more sophisticated devices around the home.
Yes, so with that, we would like to thank you for coming to watch our demo. We hope that we have shown you that there is definitely promise in using this seat pressure sensor for guiding a collaborative robot around the home, for example. And we also think it's important to outline that we are really pursuing different areas of this research to try and optimize that control system. So that involves things like finding out what mappings are most intuitive and accelerates learning, and also the artificial intelligence and neural network approaches also being used here in the lab.
Yeah, we've got some questions. So Claire asks, could you integrate some autonomous behaviors into the robot so that it could avoid obstacles but otherwise follow the user's control?
Yes, indeed. And this is where we have got other research projects as well, looking at that shared autonomy and control. What's really interesting is being able to know when the robot should take over from the person and when the person would like the robot to take over. So being able to develop not only those localized control models, we are also interested in thinking about how people would want and when they'd want the robot to take over. Because quite a lot of this, as you said, Emily, is about providing people with the agency to be able to control the system.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's a fine balance between letting the robot do everything and letting the human do everything. And actually this kind of shared autonomy that changes the weighting of what is in more control pending the situation is a really important approach. But I guess our approach here is really to always keep that human is going to be in the loop somewhere in these shared autonomy systems.
Thank you. Another question from Sam. What technologies does the seat sensor use to determine the 2D pressure map?
Okay, so the seat sensor we've got here is by Sensing Text, and that has 256 pressure sensors built into it in an array of 16 by 16. Each of those sensors, I couldn't tell you exactly what type of sensors they are, but they basically give us a value, a weighting value from 0 up to about 2,000, depending on how much weight is on each of the sensors. So that's what we're effectively using, and we just read the array of sensor data in order to create the 2D map from that.
Yeah, that's proprietary probably. So we've got today actually joining us for this session somebody on our telepresence robot, Sindhu. If you'd like to unpark and move forward and come towards us, maybe you've got a question and then people can see you on the screen as well. So if you want to unpark from there and move towards us, and then we can see what's going on there as well. So yes, Sindhu, come into a view here with us. And Sindhu should be just entering. Oh, yeah, stop, come back. We're also interested in developing all sorts of different remotely controlled systems because it is about being able to provide people with the tools, and these robots are the tools working together with AI systems to be able to operate and control the environment around them. So Sindhu's in London. Sindhu, I don't know where you've gone. You've gone off the screen again. So I don't know, you need to move back. Just turn around and then move back. Sindhu's trying to figure out how to move the robot around, so she'll probably come back. Any more questions, Dominic, or is it time?
No, nothing coming at the moment.
Oh, okay then. Okay, Sindhu, do you want to, come back in here. Come back to us. Yeah. You can unmute yourself. Oh. Put yourself into parking and then, yeah. Okay, that's fine. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. Sindhu is in screen now. Just put yourself into parking, Sindhu, and then you can ask a question. Okay, there we go. No. Yeah. As you can see, this is one of the things that we demonstrated with the Locobot as well. When somebody's new to driving these technologies, there is that initial learning curve, but this is also where we can show how the system working collaboratively with the person can be used to support their control and movement.
Yeah, and I think you really nicely capture something there. So for me, I'm really interested in this learning curve and how we can accelerate learning so people can effectively use these new technologies. And another interesting thing is thinking about the delay between when the user moves and when the robot itself moves. So as soon as you introduce a robot, let's say, into that control loop, there's going to be some delay between me moving and then the robot actually doing what I want it to. And so I'm really interested in what's the cost of those delays on how well someone can learn to control something. And so again, here, thinking about you move and then you see the implications of that movement in the robot, the time it takes for that to happen directly influences how easy it is for you to learn to use that system. But I think we're now in place.
Yeah, good. Sindhu, do you want to unmute yourself? And do you have any questions for us or any observations or thoughts that you have?
It's very cool to see whatever use cases you have developed. We from Digital Catapult also have an industrial IoT lab. Probably we have one of the telepresence robot and the warehouse robot as well. So, I mean, I am little interested in what is the novelty that the team has developed in University of Nottingham on this project, and is there any industry backing that you have, or how it is directly related to the industrial use cases, if at all?
So that's a really good set of questions. One of the things that's novel about us is that we are looking at accessibility. So people who can't use a keyboard and mouse, for example, what other technology can we use, the sensing technology and the sensing mat, to be able to offer them the ability to be able to control the movement of the robot. So this human-robot interaction is very much about accessibility and designing novel interfaces and control mechanisms, as Emily is going to be looking at in her research, that enable people to control things when their mobility itself is limited. In terms of industry development, etc., at the moment we're looking at this in assistive technologies, but our colleagues are working with other organizations such as RACE, etc., looking at tasks in dangerous situations. So, for example, nuclear decommissioning, being able to teleoperate these robots where people wouldn't want to go into the environment themselves. And again, in integrating with Internet of Things, for example, you saw the thermal imaging technology that we're developing. If there was an episode where somebody was losing their balance or getting out of bed, and then a carer needed to get there and reassure them to stay still till somebody came and helped them, then that alert could be sent to a telepresence system like this. So if you were the carer at the other end, you'd immediately log on to the system and be able to reassure the person if they were getting agitated or if they needed more support, or be with them while the emergencies services came. So from the point of view of how these technologies can be really applied and be pragmatic to support people, we're very interested to collaborate with wider groups of people to be able to realize those benefits.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Emily, can you tell us a little bit more about how you're taking your research forward?
I think we're having to wrap up.
Oh, we've run out of time already. Okay.
Just had lots of good chat and questions.
Okay.
But
Yeah, so thank you for joining. If you're interested in our research, you can see our website on the screen, on the YouTube channel, the Cobalt Makerspace, or our Cyber Physical Health and Assistive Technologies Research Group. Please get in touch with us if you've got any ideas. We're always on the lookout for PhD students and researchers. And all that remains is for me to thank my fantastic team here, which I'm very fortunate to be working with. Come along in the screen now. We've had our MSc students, Shruti and Neha, and our volunteers, Simon. This is our last session, so we're very pleased to, yeah, you've got to move a bit closer. Come on, squeeze in, to say thank you, and thank you for joining us here. It's been a very fun day.
Thank you.
Actually, this question was mine from colleague who has joined remotely, actually. Do you have this thing tested anywhere out? Have anything?
Yes.
Of this research facility from Nottingham?
Yes, we do. So we always run our research studies with other care organizations. So we've just finished a study with Age UK and some residential care providers in Bristol, trialing telepresence robots as part of our Trailblazers project to enable volunteers to provide people with physical assistance and support with their exercises in their own homes. We're also running projects which are part of doing studies with museums, so people with disabilities or accessibility issues can still visit museums and galleries. So we're very much about understanding real-world situations to be able to better inform our research and the development of these technologies.
Good luck.
Thank you, and thanks for joining on the robot. Okay, so I think we're going to be over and out. Okay.